Suddenly, a chilling voice broke years of musical harmony when Bo Rinehart, former guitarist and founding member of the Christian rock band Need to Breathe, stepped forward with allegations that have shaken both the faith community and the entertainment world to its core. On June 13th, in a carefully worded but emotionally raw post shared across his social media platforms, Bo accused his own brother, Bear Rinehart, lead singer of the band, of sexually abusing him during their childhood. For fans who had followed the band's rise from small-town Southern roots to Grammy-nominated fame, the revelation was not only devastating, but unimaginable. These weren't just any two siblings. They were the creative heartbeat of a group that preached hope, redemption, and resilience. For years, Need to Breathe had been held up as a shining example of moral integrity and Christian values. Their ballads of struggle and grace helped listeners endure pain and believe in healing. But behind the curtain of stadium tours and chart-topping albums, Bo now claims he was carrying an unspeakable burden, a trauma he alleges was inflicted by the very brother standing beside him on stage. His message, written without sensationalism but layered with anguish, revealed that this wasn't a recent awakening. He had wrestled with the memory, buried it beneath years of silence, until something within compelled him to speak. The timing was no accident. Bo's confession came on the eve of a charity event co-hosted by Bear for abused children, a moment Bo described as too cruelly ironic to ignore. The gravity of the accusation immediately sent shockwaves through the music industry, religious institutions, and social media platforms, with fans and former collaborators alike struggling to process the implications. For some, it was a heartbreaking betrayal of trust. For others, it was a long overdue unveiling of truth. The Rinehart brothers were more than musicians. They were icons of moral fortitude. And yet, Bo's words pierced through that image like shattered stained glass, revealing a hidden past that challenges everything their brand once stood for. As reactions flooded in, some expressing support, others questioning the truth, the question loomed: what happens when the voice of healing is accused of being the source of the wound? This wasn't just a family feud exposed, it was a spiritual reckoning, a public unraveling of a sacred bond twisted by a dark history. And as Bo broke the silence, the world listened, stunned, to a story that would redefine not just a band's legacy, but the meaning of forgiveness, accountability, and the cost of truth in a culture built on image and belief. Immediately, the fallout from Bo Rinehart's revelation detonated across social media like a sonic boom, splitting fan bases, unsettling church communities, and igniting widespread debate over loyalty, belief, and justice. Within hours of the accusation, hashtags like Touch Us Stand with Bo and Touch Us and Truth and Faith began trending, while others demanded due process and cautioned against rushing to judgment. Meanwhile, Need to Breathe's official channels went silent. No statement from Bear, no clarification from the band's current lineup, just a deafening void where reassurance might have lived. The silence didn't stop the speculation. Faith-based news outlets scrambled for statements, and Christian influencers found themselves torn between the call for compassion and their allegiance to an icon many had once seen as a spiritual leader. In churches, particularly in the American South, where the band's influence had once been gospel, pastors fielded confused questions from congregants stunned that their worship anthems now carried the weight of alleged trauma. For Bo, the reaction wasn't just a flood of support or disbelief, it was a triggering echo chamber. He later shared that seeing people defend his alleged abuser felt like being re-traumatized in real time. "It's like being erased again," he posted, "but I won't disappear this time." Still, even with the emotional toll, Bo made clear he wasn't seeking revenge, only truth, accountability, and healing. That distinction didn't stop Bear Rinehart's legal team from reportedly initiating quiet communications with crisis PR firms, preparing for possible litigation, or at least an aggressive media response. Behind closed doors, members of the Christian music industry whispered about the band's future, its record label's risk, and whether radio stations would begin pulling songs from rotation. Was this a personal trauma, or was it something deeper? Part of a culture of silence that has long protected religious celebrities from scrutiny? One insider anonymously questioned. Former associates of the brothers began speaking out, not directly confirming or denying the allegations, but alluding to unspoken tensions within the band for years, including Bo's abrupt departure in 2020, which now seemed less like a creative decision and more like an escape. One former tour manager described Bo as haunted but deeply kind, someone who smiled with effort. As pressure mounted, Bear was photographed arriving at a Nashville law office with his wife and pastor, both looking visibly distressed. While no formal charges had been filed, the court of public opinion had already begun its proceedings, fueled by years of emotional investment in the brothers' music, and the growing expectation that victims, especially male victims, be heard without condition. The story was no longer about just two brothers. It had become a cultural crossroad where faith, fame, and trauma collided. And with every hour of silence from Bear, the conflict deepened, not only within the family, but within a world wrestling with how to reconcile spiritual leadership with human failure. Then, the breaking point arrived, not with a press conference or police report, but through an emotionally explosive video uploaded by Bo Rinehart to his personal YouTube channel. In the dimly lit room, his voice cracked as he detailed the alleged abuse with chilling specificity. The age, the incidents, and the lingering nightmares. He didn't name Bear directly in the clip, but allusions were unmistakable. "He was supposed to protect me," Bo whispered, his eyes welling up. "Instead, he broke something in me that never fully healed." The video went viral within hours, drawing millions of views, commentary from trauma counselors, and emotional reactions from fans worldwide. Some offered prayers, others demanded accountability, while others began connecting lyrical themes from Need to Breathe's music to Hidden Pain, wondering if the band's discography had always contained subliminal cries for help. The backlash was swift. Several venues canceled planned Need to Breathe shows. Spotify and Apple Music reported mass removals of the band from personal playlists. Even Christian retailers began reconsidering merchandise partnerships. Under pressure, Bear Rinehart finally broke his silence with a carefully worded Instagram post. "I am devastated by these allegations. I love my brother deeply and have never harmed him in the way he describes. I pray for healing for both of us and for our family." He disabled comments almost immediately. The post only deepened the divide. Bo responded in a follow-up story, stating, "There is no healing without truth. That's the only prayer I have left." Media outlets picked apart Bear's language, noting the lack of denial in legal terms and the emphasis on emotional framing. Meanwhile, a former babysitter from their childhood emerged anonymously through a Rolling Stone report, stating she had suspicions back then and felt haunted for not speaking up. That revelation prompted renewed scrutiny of the family's past, including their father's role as a pastor and their strict Southern Baptist upbringing, which many now suspected may have fostered an environment of repression and unspoken pain. Advocacy groups for male survivors of childhood sexual abuse began rallying behind Bo, using the moment to spotlight the stigma men often face when coming forward. A viral video compilation titled Songs of Silence, edited by a fan, interwove Need to Breathe lyrics with Bo's quotes and images of his younger self, turning once-beloved ballads into haunting elegies. The band's legacy, once carved in inspiration and brotherhood, now hung precariously in the balance. Record labels reportedly paused contracts. Bandmates allegedly considered exiting. The climax wasn't a single moment. It was a cascade of unraveling reputations, collapsing relationships, and a public once inspired by these men now confronting the possibility that their heroes were part of a much darker story. The emotional high point wasn't victory or vengeance. It was the raw, irreversible exposure of a hidden wound. And from that wound, a message was bleeding into the world. No one, not even those who sing of light, are exempt from facing their own darkness. Ultimately, what began as a deeply personal reckoning between two brothers evolved into a larger cultural mirror, forcing fans, faith leaders, and the music industry to confront uncomfortable truths about silence, image, and the pain hidden beneath public worship. In the weeks following Bo Rinehart's revelations, the fallout settled into something more solemn than scandal, an atmosphere of collective grief and reflection. Need to Breathe quietly canceled their upcoming tour, citing family reasons, while Bear Rinehart withdrew from public engagements altogether, reportedly entering a private sabbatical under the counsel of church elders and attorneys. Meanwhile, Bo found himself unexpectedly thrust into a new role, not just as a survivor, but as a symbol. Invitations began pouring in for him to speak at mental health conferences, faith-based abuse recovery summits, and podcasts centered around religious trauma. Though often hesitant, Bo accepted a few, using his platform to highlight the invisible wounds that so many endure in silence, particularly within communities where shame is weaponized and truth is seen as betrayal. In a poignant interview, he remarked, "This isn't about destroying anyone. This is about reclaiming the voice I was forced to bury to protect someone else's platform." His words resonated deeply, not just with survivors of abuse, but with anyone who's ever felt pressure to keep quiet for the sake of family, faith, or fame. Over time, more stories began to surface, not necessarily connected to the Rineharts, but echoing a similar theme: the cost of protecting institutions over people. The song doesn't mention names, but its aching lyrics, "I sang because I couldn't scream," left listeners shaken. It charted modestly but emotionally, becoming an anthem not of rage, but of fragile resilience. In the end, there were no neat resolutions, no trials, no clear verdicts, no satisfying confessions, but there was change. Subtle, painful, necessary change. The kind that begins not in headlines or hashtags, but in the quiet courage it takes to speak the truth aloud. Bo Rinehart's story may have started as a whisper inside a song, but now it echoes across a world slowly learning that healing is possible, not despite the rupture, but because of it. And sometimes the bravest thing a soul can do is break the silence, even if it means shattering the harmony everyone else was desperate to keep.